There's a legitimate conversation to be had about who the #1 ranked team in the country should be right now. Alabama, Texas, Ohio State. You can make a rational argument for multiple teams. But for me right now, Alabama is the #1 team in the country, and here is why. Bama has the best win of the year so far after beating Georgia at home. I know they blew a big lead, but it's one type of mental toughness to dominate an opponent, put your foot on the throat, and end it. It's a totally different type of mental toughness to blow that big lead, then get it right back and hold on to it and win. That takes guts and maturity. Another reason is Jalen Milroe is operating at his most efficient rate right now. He's turned into a pretty complete passer, not just an outfielder that can throw a guy out from home or just throw the deep ball. He also has the maturity to understand he doesn't need to prove to anyone that he's a pocket passer purely, because he isn't. He's playing to his strengths, and the offense is tailored to him like a fine suit. On the Texas side, I worry about Quinn Ewers' availability. Arch Manning has a bright future, but he's not a national championship quarterback right now, and Milroe doesn't get hurt. He only hurts tacklers and opposing fans' feelings. The best ability is availability, and with Quinn, we really don't know down the stretch. When you add all of that together, Alabama looks to be the most stable team and has even more potential and room to grow as this season continues. Now, that isn't to say they can't be surpassed. There's a long way to go. But for right now, I've got Bama #1 by a nose. We want to know what you think as well. Let us know who you think the top team is in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. David Cohn, right now, who is your #1 team in the country and why?
It's Alabama, and I really don't think it's close. I mean, the Buckeyes haven't really played any stellar competition yet, and we just learned from Ole Miss, hey, when you really get into a football game, that's how we find out what you're all about. And then as far as Texas, we're only a few months removed from Florida State not being able to make the playoff because their star quarterback was hurt. So if Quinn Ewers isn't going to play, then we're going to see if Texas is going to be held out. But I get it. That's the AP poll versus the college football playoff. It's still September. Today's the last day of September. Whoever's ranked #1 doesn't matter all that much. But to me, it's Alabama. And here's my 3 main takeaways from this weekend. 1, what an awesome football game in an incredible environment. Tuscaloosa is the mecca of college football. We thought we might be in for something like this, which is why we picked that game to go to. And man, did it live up to the hype. And it wasn't for an SEC championship. It wasn't for a national championship. It was just a good old-fashioned fall Saturday in September on a college campus. 2, Georgia, congrats to them on coming back and not just making the game close. They took a lead. Now, I mean, they were outplayed and out-physicaled for 3+ quarters of that football game, and I don't think that they're going to be ranked in the top 4 or the top 5 as we move forward here. I mean, I know they.
I think they're 5. I got them at 5.
You have them at 5 right now. Okay, so. And that'll beg the question that I know we're going to get into. Does this say more about Alabama or Georgia? But they couldn't get anything figured out on either side of the football for most of that game. And when you're playing with your back against the wall and you know you're going for every 4th down, it's a little bit different throughout the course of the game. But kudos to them for being able to come back in that environment on the road, to be able to take the lead. That was incredible. And then my 3rd takeaway is if Jalen Milroe is going to play like that, if he's going to throw the ball that effectively, combined with what he already has been doing the last couple seasons on the ground with his legs, then Alabama can beat every team in the country. They really can. Will they? It remains to be seen. But those are my top 3 takeaways, and what a weekend, man.
Man, incredible. Blaine, who's your #1 team in the country right now?
I mean, I think you have to put Alabama there, but I do think it's close. I think what I took out of the Alabama and Georgia game is, damn, I like watching Tennessee play football. I think Tennessee's defense is better than both these defenses
Agreed.
we saw Saturday. And I think the offense is still getting better for Tennessee. But I will say this. And the one thing I questioned walking into this game that I got the answer to is, can Jalen Milroe do the easy things well, right? I know Jalen can make the hard things look really easy when it comes to football, but can he make the easy throws? Can he do the right things at the right moments? And he made it look like it's supposed to be. The easy, simple, short throws, going through progressions, seeing defense, knowing pre-snap where guys are coming, throwing into the blitz, the growth we wanted to see to Jalen Milroe becoming a full quarterback. We saw that. Right now, my Heisman leader, it's tough for me not to put Ryan Williams there. It's not because of the
Ryan Williams over Jalen Milroe.
Yes, I think so. To be honest, to me, he's like 14 years old, okay? He can be 19 years old at the Senior Bowl. And what this kid is doing right now is amazing to me. These aren't a bunch of scrubs that he's playing against Georgia. He is making them look like they're minor league players, like they don't belong in the same league as him. It's not only the routes. Don't get disguised by the routes. What he does after the catch, the balance, the focus that he has, you see this from seniors and guys in the NFL. So right now, Ryan Williams, with that age and what he is doing, and look, it's a quarterback trophy. I get it. We all know that. But what he is doing right now, the kid is ICB ongoing. The aura is unstoppable, and it's only going to get more and more and more. And the one game I'm notching right now that I can't wait for is Alabama at Tennessee.
That is, and I agree with you 100% about Tennessee's defense, especially after seeing Ole Miss now. To the Texas part of this, because I do want to talk about, again, the things that separate it, and it's minute to me. It's not a big gap. If Texas is at full strength and Alabama is at full strength, which basically means it's Quinn Ewers playing with Texas, and they play on a neutral site, I would take Alabama right now. I think Alabama would probably still be favored in that game right now. It'd basically be a pick 'em because of the running element of Jalen Milroe. Do I think the Texas defense is better than Alabama's defense? I do. I think they're better. Not saying Alabama's defense is bad, but overall, I would take Texas's defense over Alabama's defense. The difference is the Texas defense has to play against Jalen Milroe. The Alabama defense only has to practice against Jalen Milroe. So when you look at least in college and the way the game is played, if Jalen Milroe continues to do this and continues, and Blaine, I think, put it very eloquently, making the easy things easy, or what do we say, making the routine plays routine. We talk about in baseball not giving teams more than 27 outs in a 9-inning game. Jalen Milroe showed you everything. Now, it wasn't perfect all the way through. I thought he actually put that ball that was intercepted in a decent spot because he saw the guy that was in front of him. Probably
about down near the goal line?
Yeah, near the goal line. I didn't think that was an egregious throw. Sometimes stuff like that happens when you're having to fit a ball in between two defenders. But the running ability and watching the way that Alabama, and again, you give Georgia credit for coming back, but the way for 2.5 quarters, it wasn't like fluky things were happening and they were catching double tip passes or that Georgia was busting coverages all over the place. Alabama was lining up and whipping their ass the way that we have watched Georgia line up and whip everybody's ass because you had better players, whether it was in the run game, whether it was in the pass game. But on the Georgia side, I want to throw this caveat in there. I think this second half, you want to win the game. There are no moral victories, especially against Alabama with Kirby Smart. But I think you found a couple things out from Georgia. I would not be shocked if you saw Georgia start to go more up-tempo. They looked better to me when they were having to go faster. It takes the thinking out of it, and it puts the defense in a bad position. There's a reason you see so many up-tempo offenses now. And with an offense that lacked finding explosive plays, I think it gives them the best chance to hit those explosive plays, and it doesn't give Carson Beck too much time to think about it. Right? There was a totally different guy you saw in the second half with Carson Beck. So I wonder if you're going to see Georgia going a little bit more up-tempo, and they were able to find those explosive plays, which should give you some confidence even though you lost the game. I just think on a neutral site, Texas versus Alabama, I think Alabama wins by a field goal right now because Jalen Milroe can make plays with his legs, whether it be extending the play outside of the pocket and throwing, extending the play inside the pocket and throwing, and then in the run game where you truly get a hat on a hat with Q power, Q counter. We saw Power Reed at the goal line a lot. They almost scored with him keeping it one time. They did when he gave the jet sweep that's part of the Power Reed motion. Quinn Ewers can extend the play from in the pocket, and he's not a bad runner. But I think there's a lot of Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers when you watch the way they play.
Well, let's just hope we get an Alabama-Texas matchup. I don't know if it could be in the SEC championship. I don't know if it could be in the college football playoff, but let's hope we get that matchup. And if you're not going to put Alabama #1, then I think you have to go Texas. Strength of schedule at this point in the season has to count for something. Texas went on the road and beat Michigan, beat them thoroughly. You got Alabama hosting Georgia right now. To me, those sorts of games have to matter. A couple other things here when you're talking about Georgia fighting back and the implications that has on the playoff later because you didn't get blown out.
That's
going to be in people's mind.
Show.
That was a point that you brought up. Alabama didn't get complacent in the second half. I just went back this morning and watched the entire game, the first half and the second half. Even when they're up 28-7 with a couple minutes left in the first half, they're throwing the ball almost every play. On 4th down, when they could have kicked a field goal, Alabama went for it on 4th and 1 and didn't convert that. They didn't get complacent. Georgia's defense just turned into the defense we knew they were. They were run-fitting better. They were able to protect better against that quarterback counter and power stuff that you're talking about. And then on defense, Georgia just was hitting some big 4 vertical shots. But one more point on the Ryan Williams thing, because you have him as your Heisman leader right now. What I thought was incredible is Alabama was beating Georgia 28-0 at one point in this game, and we didn't even mention Ryan Williams' name. Yes, he has all the attention because of the big play that he made at the end of the game, and that wasn't even a great throw by Jalen Milroe. We're going to break it down tomorrow.
That was just
get the ball up. Ryan Williams just go catch it and make a play.
And that's what Georgia did until the end, where they threw the interception.
But keep in mind, for most of the game, Alabama was just throttling Georgia without us even mentioning that kid's.
And I do want to make a point. I want to ask you a question, David, and then I'm going to get to the chat. We're going to talk about the wide receivers making catches and all these spin moves. You want to know what goes and wins games? I want you to go back and watch that game if you have time. Watch Alabama's wide receivers block. It is a masterclass in not only fitting it upright, not holding once the play is made, but finishing the block. That's something that doesn't get talked about enough. That's what turns 20-yard runs into 80-yard runs. That's what turns, if you're running the ball trying to get a first down on 3rd and 5, a 2-yard run into a 6-yard run and a first down. I was so impressed with the blocking ability of Alabama's wide receivers in key moments as well, not just catching passes, not just running routes and doing the little things, the dirty things. But for those in the chat that are saying, why not Ohio State? Why not put Ohio State number 1 right now? You're seeing what Jeremiah Smith's doing offensively. They look to kind of figure it out against Michigan State. What would you say to people who are like, Ohio State needs to be the number 1?
Well, and they may be the best team in the country in the next 4 weeks. Do you have their schedule pulled up, Lane? Can you pull up their schedule? Yeah. The next 4 weeks, we're going to find out so much. Their day in the sun is right in front of us. I know they have Iowa coming up, and I think at the end of that, what's the 4 games?
All right, so you have Iowa at home, you're at Oregon, Nebraska at home, and at Penn State.
Perfect. Let's find out a lot more about the Buckeyes. But like I said, strength of schedule has to count for something, right? Are you not going to reward the teams who are also undefeated like you are, but have played tougher teams?
No, without a doubt. And then again, if you win your conference, you're one of the top 4 teams, you get a bye anyway. You're going to play somebody good in that second game anyway, so it really doesn't matter. I'm still a little worried about Ohio State's offensive line and then Will Howard's ability to throw the ball against elite teams. I've got to see it, but we are going to see it. Like you said, their day in the sun is coming, so Ohio State may have the best team in the country. We just haven't been able to see it yet, and Ole Miss playing the way they did, and we're going to get into that against Kentucky, really doesn't help that. Let's get to the chat.
All right, chat, hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you donate. It's on topic. It will get read. A lot to get to on this Monday. We're going to start off with Ken O. What's up, brother? Says Milroe was involved in almost 500 yards of offense at an 80-plus completion rate. I do not know how he's not on the top of the Heisman list, because I'm a receiver and I'm sick of watching quarterbacks.
No, Jalen Milroe's on the top of the Heisman list. I mean, we can talk about Biletnikoff and all this stuff. And a quarterback's winning it, right? Travis Hunter can get invited, and we're going to talk about Colorado. Let's see if they keep winning, though. That could be the fly in the ointment, to quote our good friend Tim Brando. But right now, Jalen Milroe's got to be leading the Heisman. You look at the way Cam Ward played against Virginia Tech. Obviously, Jackson Dart against Kentucky losing that game. There was a point, David, during our live stream where he was 11 for 11. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if it was toward the end of the second quarter. And I looked at you and said, this is the equivalent of pitching a perfect game.
Yeah.
Not just because he didn't have an incompletion, but the way he was running it and his decision-making, right? It's all encompassed. He was literally pitching a perfect game. And again, credit to Georgia coming back. But Cole Kubiak put out a clip of when Georgia pressured him, right? And they brought more against empty than Alabama can block. You bring 6 versus 5. You can't, when you're in empty, you can't block it. And he literally made the Georgia defender miss and then took off. And you say, as a defense, what call do you make to stop that? There's only one call you can make, and that's to the police. That's it. Or the Pope. Sometimes, look, scheme, we can sit here and talk about scheme. We're going to talk about it with Texas A&M and Missouri here in a little bit. And that's all great and good and fun and this, that, and the other. But it's the players who make the plays, the Jims and Joes, not the X's and O's that win the game. And sometimes you can have the perfect call, and a great player makes you look stupid. I've seen some of the smartest coaches in the world look dumb because they didn't have the players. I've seen some of the dumbest coaches in the world look smart because they had better players than you. That's why recruiting will always be, whether it's through the transfer portal or through high school, the lifeblood of a program. It is about the guys catching the ball, throwing the ball, making the tackles, not the guys with the headsets telling them how to do it.
Yeah, so Jalen was 11 for 11, like you talked about. That was about 3 minutes left in the first half, and on the 12th pass, it was called a completion. They had to go back back and overturn it. Almost started 12 for 12. And I'm so glad you made the point about the interception because I completely agree with you. That interception later that was down near the goal line, it was a bad throw. But it was the type of bad throw that almost always leads to an incompletion. That ball still had to get tipped up in the air for it to be an interception.
And that guy would tell you should have caught it.
Yeah, and exactly. The riskier throw came later in the game in one-on-one coverage where it got batted down. That's the one that could have been
when
a
he
pick
could have
six.
jumped.
It gave me vibes on that pick he threw against Texas last year. But again, a near perfect game. And like I said, if he's going to be that efficient through the air with what he can already do on the ground, like Alabama's going to be so tough to beat, man.
Hey, YouTube, what is up? Appreciate all you guys stopping by. We're unbelievably happy with how many people watch the live stream and how many subs we're getting. Please, if you haven't, if you just found us, hit that subscribe button and please keep sharing the show because we want to keep taking this thing on the road.